Welcome back to the Manual Docker and .NET section of the Getting Started with Docker course. In this lesson, we're going to set up our initial build file. So let's get started. We have our Docker file. I keep calling it a build file, but it's a Docker file, which is for the build. Okay, so we have our Docker file here inside of our project, and we have our two files that we need for the various types of images we're going to use. Now, right now, the Docker file is in the project root. Okay, so it's in the sample web app project root. I'm debating if I want to keep it there or not. I may want to put it in the solution just in case we want to bring in other projects in this Docker file. So I think I'm going to do is actually move it up to the solution level, which let's do it in Explorer. So let's open folders in File Explorer, and we're going to move it to be the /src or source folder. And this is where we're going to put all of our source code to then build. Now I'm going to copy some files over. Now I could just copy all of my files, but here's the problem with that. If you do that, anytime you were to change a file, you're going to invalidate from this layer on. Now what that means is that, remember that every time we do certain things like a copy, it creates a layer in our image, and then it can cache those layers for next time. So if nothing changes before that layer, it doesn't have to change, it doesn't have to redo that layer, it doesn't have to rebuild it. But if we do a copy all, then anytime any file in my project changes, I have to rebuild from that point on. And I'm not quite sure why that keeps popping up, that big box there. Seems like there's a glitch with the preview version of Visual Studio. Sorry about that. That's what you get for living on the edge. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy just the solution file and the project files over to the source directory. That way, I can do a .NET restore and restore the packages, and all of that will still be cached until the solution file changes or one of the projects, in this case just one project, one of the project files changes. Not the project files internally, just the actual project file. So let's just copy the // as the source, and it is sample app.sln. So that's the solution file. We're going to copy that over to // meaning just the root of the directory. Next, we're going to copy the // sample web app, that's the folder, / sample web app.cs proj file. Okay, so that's the project file for the sample web app project. we're going to copy that over to /sample web app /. So inside a source folder, we're going to copy a solution file directly into the source file or folder. Then we're going to copy the CS proj file, the sample web app CS proj file, over to the source folder inside a subdirectory called sample web app. So basically mirroring what we have here. But copying just these two files allows us to then do a run .NET restore. And that will restore the packages that the NuGet packages that this project needs. So up through here, this can all be cached after the first time we run it because of the fact that these files, the solution file and the CS proj file, don't typically change. And if they do change, most likely it's because we added or removed a package, in which case the .NET restore should be run again. But if that's not the case, if we haven't changed a package and we haven't added more files or something like that, then all this can be cached and we can save a whole lot of time and effort. Now that we're done with the restore, then we can just do a copy of dot to dot, meaning it's going to copy everything from the solution file folder and the subfolders over to the same locations in the source folder on our image. Okay, so we're going to override or overwrite the solution file and the CS proj file, and that's okay. What we'll still have, though, is the restored NuGet packages. And again, all this can be cached, but now anytime a file changes from here on down will be redone. And that's okay. Now here's the big one. Run .NET publish. This is where if you were to right click on this and say publish, that's essentially what we're doing here. We're going to do a publish of this project, which bundles it up, packages it up, and prepares it to be sent to a server, or in this case, just to a folder, which then we'll manually put onto a web server. So we're going to publish. Well, we're going to say /sample web app /sample web app.cs proj. So that's our project file. Dash to start with before we put our project in it. Next, we've copied all of our source code, actually right here, all of our source code for our entire application over to this image. We don't want to give that away. So now we're going to say from, and we want to use the stretch slim, the small one, and we'll say as, let's call this one final. That's what Microsoft calls it. We'll call it the same. we're going to set our work directory to be /app, which that's, we put the source code or the published files in /app, but that's on our build image. In our final image, we're also going to have a /app folder. And then we can say copy -- from equals build. So instead of copying from our local hard drive, we're copying from the build image. We're going to say /app, so that's everything in the app. A web application using this web app, sample web app. Now that should all work, but we're going to test it. But first you may be saying, man, Tim, you use a lot of stuff in here. I have no clue how I would ever know to do any of that. And I get that. What we're doing here mostly is not Docker work, but instead is .NET work. .NET restore, .NET publish, and then .NET run. So how do I know to do this? Well, first of all, you can study the different command line options for .NET. .NET Core is built around the idea of command line and that you can run things from the command line. But if we were to open up our PowerShell, and let's kind of resize this, so we can see both at the same time. And let's just do a dir here, and notice we're in there's a solution file, and then here's the sample web app. So let's move into that. So cd sample web app. Notice it's not case sensitive for PowerShell. It is up here in our Docker file. Now you can clear the screen and do a dir, and notice that we have our csproj file. Now there is no app folder, but let's go ahead and run the .NET publish and just see what happens. So I'm going to copy this entire line right here and open my PowerShell back up, and I'm going to paste it in so you can see what happens. So it's going to, actually, you know what? I need to go up one level because it's based upon running from the solution folder. So publish the .sample web app / sample web app.csproj. It's going to publish that CS project file in release mode to an app folder. If we run this, it restored, and now it's doing a build of our project. And once it's done that, then it's going to do a publish, and it's going to create that folder. Still running. It's going to take a little bit of time to do so, but once it's done, then we can look and find that folder. All right, so it just created those files. Notice it published out to C app, which isn't ideal on my machine, but that's okay. So if we come up here and we go all the way up to my C drive, actually let's just do it this way, C:/app. And then here is my output. So we have one of the things is samplewebapp.dll. So now if we wanted to, we could come over here, we could clear the screen, and we could say .NET. Let's actually go to our app folder first. So C:/app. CD C:/app. Clear screen. We can do our dir and see that we have a samplewebapp.dll. So we can say .NET samplewebapp.dll. And that's now started a web application. If we were to open up a Chrome window and go to localhost, and let's look at it's 5,000. I'll bring it over here. There we go. So there's 5,000. If we go to 5001 on HTTPS, we now get that site as well. So it has launched our application. If we do Control-C and try to refresh, it's going to time out because it's no longer available. So we just launched a web server on our machine using .NET and the name of the web app, the DLL. So that's what we're doing, but we're doing it on, let's just do this. We're doing it on the image instead. So on the image, we're doing .NET samplewebapp.dll, which is exactly what we want, hopefully. So now let's grab the location for this. We're going to open Folder and File Explorer so I can copy the path to it. So I can just do CD and paste the path in. And now we can do our build command. Now first let's do a Docker images. Make sure we have just those two images. We do. And Docker ps-a. Make sure you have just that, or no containers at all. So we can do a Docker build -t for giving it a tag. We'll call it web app, and we'll say 1.0.0. We won't worry about doing latest for this. And we'll do a dot. So this is the 1.0.0 version of our web app. As you go through the 13 steps, so it's going through step 7 right now. It's just on the restore. Now it's on step 13 out of 13, so we're good to go. So now if we do a Docker images, we can see we have actually two more images. We have one that says none. We have one that says web app. The web app is version 1.0. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to do a Docker run on this. Now this one's going to allow us to use that cache and make the build the next time faster. So if we do the same thing over again, and let's just do a 1.0.1 just to show the speed difference. That's the speed difference. See how quick that was? Because every step used the cache. Okay, so now if we do a docker ps-a, we can see that this container has been up for 9 seconds. It's called first_attempt, and it's based upon web app version 1.0.1. And here's the mapping for port 8000 is mapped to port 80, and 8443 is mapped to port 443 internally. So let's open up a version of Chrome, and we can start with our local host. And there is port 8000. So we've got, that's working. We can go to privacy, home, that's all working. If we go to 8443 on HTTPS, we get this. Site can't be reached. Do you know why that is? Let's look at our container. So if we do a clear, well, let's not clear a screen. Actually, let's do a Docker. Well, first we need to look at the, it's called first_attempt. So let's clear the screen now and do a Docker inspect first_attempt. And now we can expand this out and look at all the different pieces. Notice that it is, the ports are 443 and port 80. So that's good. And where they're mapped to, that's perfect. If we come up here to environmental variables, ASP.NET Core _URLs equals HTTP port 80. And that's it. There's no HTTPS. So that's a problem right there. That's going to be an issue when it comes to getting a HTTPS port up and running. Now, it's not the only issue, but that's an issue. All right? And so even though it has the 2 mapped ports, the .NET itself is not listening on anything other than port 80. So that's a problem. But we do have a running container that's been up for 2 minutes, so it survived, and we could actually hit it, we can talk to it, and there's not much to it right now, but at least it works. So now in our next lesson, we're going to tackle how to enable HTTPS or SSL for our ASP.NET Core web applications in Docker. So come on back for that once you have played around with this and are comfortable.